She knew the moment she clicked the wrong folder. She might not leave that room alive. The laptop screen froze. Not because it crashed, but because she stopped breathing. A private folder sat open on the desktop. No password. No warning. Just images. Her fingers trembled as her eyes took it in. Photos that were never meant to be seen. Photos that didn't belong to a criminal empire, but to a man who ruled it. Adrian Moretti, the most feared Mafia boss in the city. And standing behind her. She felt it before she heard him. The air shifted. The room went silent. Then his voice came low, controlled, and deadly calm. "What are you looking at?" Her heart slammed against her ribs. Slowly she turned. Adrian stood in the doorway, suit immaculate, expression unreadable, but his eyes were no longer kind. They were calculating. Dangerous. She swallowed hard, her mouth dry. I didn't mean to," her voice cracked. "I was just fixing your laptop." He didn't move closer. That was worse. He glanced at the screen. Just once. The temperature in the room dropped. Those photos weren't illegal. They weren't explicit. But they were personal. Photos of a hospital room. A newborn baby wrapped in blue. A tiny hand gripping a man's finger. His finger. Her chest tightened. She hadn't just invaded his privacy. She'd uncovered the only secret Adrian Moretti had ever kept hidden. And now, he closed the door behind him with a soft click. No guards. No shouting. Just the sound of a lock turning. "You weren't supposed to see that," he said quietly. Her legs felt weak. "I swear," she whispered, tears stinging her eyes. "I won't tell anyone. I didn't even know it was." He took one step forward. Then another. Each step slow. Measured. Predatory. "You work for me now," Adrian said. "And you've just learned something that can destroy me." Her breath hitched. She shook her head. "I don't want anything. I just want to leave." For the first time, emotion flickered across his face. Not anger. Fear. "You don't get to leave," he said softly. "Not anymore." Her stomach dropped. Because in that moment, she understood something terrifying. She wasn't standing in a tech repair job anymore. She was standing in the middle of a man's most guarded secret. And secrets like that didn't let witnesses walk away. Her mind raced for an escape that didn't exist. The door was locked. The windows were sealed. And Adrian Moretti was standing between her and the only exit. She forced herself to breathe. "I won't say a word," she whispered again, desperation leaking into her voice. "I didn't even look long. I swear on my life." His jaw tightened. "That's the problem," Adrian replied. "You don't understand what you saw." He walked past her without touching her, picked up the laptop, and shut it slowly, like closing a coffin. "You didn't see pictures," he continued. "You saw leverage." Her throat burned. "I don't want leverage," she said. "I just fix computers." Adrian finally looked at her fully. Really looked. Not as a technician. Not as staff. As a liability. "You're good at what you do," he said. "You fixed in minutes what my people couldn't in weeks." That wasn't comfort. That was a justification. Her chest tightened. "Please. I have a family." His eyes flickered. "How old?" he asked. She hesitated. "My little sister. She's 12. Silence. Then Adrian exhaled slowly and looked away. "That folder," he said quietly. contains the only thing I've ever been weak enough to love. Her heart thudded. The baby, she asked before she could stop herself. His head snapped toward her. That single word changed everything. She immediately regretted it. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then his voice dropped raw, restrained. Yes. The fear in her chest twisted into confusion. You're a mafia boss, she said softly. You could have anything. He laughed once. It wasn't amused. They took her mother from me, he said. Left the child as a weapon. Her breath caught. That child doesn't exist to the world, Adrian continued. No birth records. No name tied to me. Nothing. He stepped closer, not threatening now, but heavy. And now, you've seen him. Tears slipped down her cheek. So, what happens to me? She asked. Adrian stared at her for a long time. Then he said the words that shattered her sense of safety. You don't leave. Her knees almost gave out. I'm not going to kill you, he added calmly. But I can't let you walk away either. She shook her head. That's not fair. No, he agreed. But it's survival. He turned toward the door and unlocked it. You'll stay in the house, he said. You'll work only for me. She stared at him in disbelief. You're kidnapping me. Adrian paused. Then he looked back over his shoulder. No, he said quietly. I'm protecting myself. And for the first time, she realized the most dangerous thing about Adrian Moretti wasn't his power. It was the fact that he was terrified of losing that child. And terrified men made unthinkable decisions. She didn't sleep. Not even for a second. The guest room was too clean. Too quiet. Too guarded. Every sound felt watched. When morning light crept through the curtains, she was already sitting on the edge of the bed, heart pounding like she was waiting for a verdict. A soft knock came at the door. Her body stiffened. Breakfast, a female voice said. Please come to the kitchen. Relief hit her so hard it almost hurt. At least it wasn't him. Downstairs, the mansion looked different in daylight. Less shadowed. Still cold. Then she heard it. A sound so small it barely registered at first. A whimper. Her chest tightened. She followed the sound instinctively, stopping just outside a partially open door. Inside, a woman was rocking a baby in her arms. A baby with dark lashes. Soft curls. A tiny clenched fist shaking with restless cries. The sight hit her like a punch. That was who the photos were for. Not desire. Not secrets. Love. He didn't sleep well, the nanny whispered when she noticed her. He only calms down when the music plays. The baby cried louder, face scrunching in distress. Without thinking, she stepped forward. I can help, she said softly. The nanny hesitated. He doesn't like strangers. She met the baby's eyes. Something inside her broke open. I know, she whispered. I'll be gentle. The nanny reluctantly handed him over. The moment the baby felt her arms, something strange happened. He stopped crying. Not slowly. Instantly. His tiny fingers wrapped around her shirt, breathing evening out like he had been waiting for her. The room went silent. The nanny stared. He's never done that. Her throat tightened. It's okay, she whispered to the baby. I've got you. A shadow moved behind her. She turned. Adrian stood in the doorway, watching, not as a mafia boss, as a man holding his breath. That's the first time he stopped crying that fast, Adrian said quietly. Her heart thudded. I didn't mean to, she started. Don't, he interrupted. His eyes were locked on the child. How did you do that? He asked. She swallowed. I used to help my sister sleep when our parents worked nights. Adrian stepped closer. The baby looked up at him, then back at her, then smiled. A real smile. Something in Adrian's face cracked. Just for a second. Then he reached out, hesitant, unsure, and brushed the baby's cheek. You're not afraid of him, Adrian said. The baby gurgled in response. She isn't either, Adrian added softly, looking at her now. She met his gaze. For the first time, she wasn't terrified. She was curious. Why keep him hidden? She asked gently. Adrian's jaw tightened. Because if my enemies know he exists, he said, they'll use him to destroy me. Her arms instinctively tightened around the baby. And his mother? She asked. Adrian looked away. She died believing I'd keep him safe. Silence filled the room. Then the baby rested his head against her chest, trusting without fear. Her eyes burned. He deserves better than fear, she said. Adrian's voice dropped. So do you. She looked at him confused. I didn't bring you here to cage you, he said. I brought you here because fate put you in front of that laptop. She shook her head. That's not fate. That's bad luck. Adrian's lips twitched slightly. Maybe, he said. Or maybe you were meant to be here. Her heart raced. What are you saying? Adrian stepped closer, voice steady but vulnerable. I need someone who sees him as a child, he said. Not as a weakness. The baby stirred in her arms. And right now, Adrian continued. That person is you. The weight of it pressed into her chest. This wasn't a threat anymore. It was an invitation. A dangerous one. And deep down, she knew something terrifying. Walking away might be harder than staying. She should have left that morning. That was the logical choice. The safe choice. Instead, she stayed. Not because of Adrian. Because of the child. She sat in the sunlit corner of the kitchen, gently bouncing him on her knee while the nanny prepared bottles. The baby had one hand wrapped around her finger like an anchor, as if letting go would break something important. Her chest felt tight. This isn't my place, she whispered to herself. But the baby didn't care about logic. He only knew warmth. Then the sound came. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just wrong. Footsteps. Too many of them. Too fast. The kitchen door opened sharply. 3 men entered. All black coats. All hard eyes. All carrying the same kind of silence that followed violence. The nanny froze. Her heart slammed. The men didn't look at her first. They looked at the baby. One of them spoke. Low. Respectful. Dangerous. Boss wants the child moved. Now. Her arms tightened instantly. Moved, she asked before she could stop herself. The man finally looked at her. Cold appraisal. She's not cleared, he said to the nanny. She stays, another replied calmly. Boss's orders. Her pulse thundered. This wasn't a home. It was a fortress. And the baby wasn't protected. He was hidden. Where are you taking him? She demanded. The men exchanged glances. One of them stepped closer. You shouldn't ask questions, he said flatly. The baby sensed the shift. He whimpered. Her instinct kicked in. No, she said, standing. You're not taking him like that. The room went dead silent. Even the men seemed surprised. She doesn't understand, one muttered. Before she could react, one reached for the baby. She turned her body instinctively, shielding him. I said no. That was when Adrian's voice cut through the room like steel. Step back. Every man froze. Adrian stood in the doorway. His expression wasn't loud. It was worse. Controlled fury. She's holding my son, Adrian said quietly. No one touches him. The men stepped back instantly. Adrian crossed the room, eyes never leaving them. I gave orders, he said calmly. You follow them. You don't reinterpret them. Yes, boss, they said in unison. They exited quickly. The door shut. Silence. Her hands were shaking. She hadn't realized until Adrian gently placed his hand under the baby's head, steadying him. You didn't have to do that, he said quietly. She swallowed hard. Yes, I did. Adrian studied her. Not angry. Concerned. You put yourself in danger. She looked up at him, eyes blazing. So did you. You just learned how to live with it. The baby cried softly. Adrian took him from her arms carefully. The baby protested, then reached back for her. That hurt more than fear ever could. Adrian noticed. Something unreadable crossed his face. He trusts you, Adrian said. Her voice cracked. That's what scares me. Adrian hesitated. Then he did something unexpected. He handed the baby back to her. The room felt smaller. If you're going to be here, Adrian said slowly, you need to understand what this world costs. Her breath caught. What are you saying? Adrian's eyes locked onto hers. I'm saying once you see everything, he said, you won't be able to unsee it. Her heartbeat roared in her ears. This isn't a job anymore, she whispered. No, Adrian agreed. It isn't. She looked down at the baby, then back at Adrian, and realized the terrifying truth. She had already crossed the line. And the line wasn't behind her anymore. Night fell heavy over the mansion. The kind of night that pressed against windows and made every shadow feel alive. She sat alone in the guest room, the baby finally asleep in the next room, his soft breathing audible through the half-open door. Her hands still trembled from earlier. She hadn't planned to stay this long. She hadn't planned to care. A knock came. Once. Controlled. She opened the door slowly. Adrian stood there. No guards. No weapons visible. Just him. You should be resting, he said. She crossed her arms. So should your son. Somewhere safer. His jaw tightened slightly. You think this place isn't safe? I think it's protected, she replied. There's a difference. Adrian studied her for a long moment, then stepped inside, closing the door behind him. The air shifted immediately. This morning, he said quietly, you stopped armed men without thinking. She met his eyes. They were going to take a baby. They were following orders. Orders can be wrong. That surprised him. He exhaled slowly, like a man standing at the edge of a truth he didn't want to enter. Come with me, he said. Her heart skipped. Where? To see what you're already involved in. She hesitated. Every instinct screamed not to go. But another voice louder said she already knew too much. Okay, she said. He led her down a private corridor, past doors she'd never noticed before, past cameras, locks, biometric scanners. The house peeled away layer by layer until it stopped feeling like a home at all. They reached a steel door. Adrian pressed his thumb to a scanner. The door opened. Inside was a room colder than the rest of the house. Walls of screens. Maps. Files. Photos. And faces. Her stomach dropped. Women. Men. Children. Some smiling. Some bruised. Some gone. She stepped back. What is this? Adrian's voice was steady, but low. The cost. Her breath came shallow. You keep files on people. I keep records, he corrected. So no one disappears without being remembered. She shook her head. That's not. Then she saw it. A familiar name. Her name. Her knees went weak. What is that doing there? She whispered. Adrian turned sharply. You weren't supposed to see that. She walked closer, heart pounding, eyes scanning the file. Background checks. Surveillance photos. Her apartment. Her work. You had me watched, she said. Yes. Her voice broke. Why? Adrian didn't dodge it. Because I don't let people near my son without knowing who they are. Tears burned her eyes. You could have just asked. Adrian looked at her then, really looked. In my world, he said quietly, asking gets people killed. She stared at the screen, then noticed something else. A timestamp. Weeks ago. Before the laptop. Before the photos. You already knew me, she whispered. Yes. Her chest tightened. Then why pretend it was an accident? Adrian's control finally cracked, just a little. Because I needed to know who you were when you didn't know who I was. Silence swallowed the room. You tested me, she said. No, he replied. I protected my son. She turned to face him, tears spilling now. And what about protecting me? Adrian stepped closer, his voice lower. That's what I'm trying to figure out. A cry echoed faintly from down the hall. The baby. She moved instantly. Adrian followed. Back in the nursery, she lifted the baby, holding him tightly, breathing him in like grounding. Adrian watched from the doorway. You don't belong in this world, he said quietly. She didn't look at him. Then why did you pull me into it? Adrian didn't answer. Because the truth was worse than any lie. Because somewhere between a broken laptop and a crying baby, the Mafia boss had done the one thing he never allowed himself to do. He had let someone matter. And now, if she walked away, he didn't know if he'd survive it. The gunshot shattered the night. Not inside the mansion. Outside. She froze. The baby startled in her arms, letting out a sharp cry. Instinct took over. She turned her body, shielding him, heart hammering so loud she could barely hear anything else. Adrian was already moving. Stay here, he ordered. But the command never reached her. Another shot. Then shouting. Heavy boots on marble. The house exploded into motion. Alarms screamed. Lights snapped on. Armed men flooded the corridor like shadows given flesh. Adrian was suddenly back beside her, one hand gripping her shoulder, the other lifting his gun. Give him to me, he said. Her arms tightened around the baby. No. This wasn't defiance. It was fear. If they breached the east wing, Adrian stopped himself, jaw tightening. Please. She looked into his eyes and saw something she hadn't before. Not control. Panic. She handed him the baby. The moment the child was in his arms, Adrian changed. His body curved protectively. His gun lowered slightly, not because the danger was gone, but because his priorities had narrowed to one fragile heartbeat. Tunnel route, he barked. Now. They moved fast. Down hidden stairs, through corridors that smelled like concrete and steel. Sirens wailed above them. Somewhere, glass shattered. Someone screamed. She stumbled. Adrian caught her without thinking. Their eyes locked. "If anything happens to him," she whispered, "I swear." "I know," he said. "I deserve it." They reached the safe room. Steel doors slammed shut behind them. Silence fell hard. The baby whimpered, then settled, tiny fingers clutching Adrian's shirt like he understood everything. Minutes passed. 10. 20. Finally, a voice crackled over the intercom. "Perimeter secure." Adrian didn't move. Not until he'd checked the baby's breathing. Not until his forehead rested briefly against his son's. Only then did he exhale. She watched it all. The ruthless Mafia boss reduced to a trembling father. "You said I don't belong in this world," she said quietly. Adrian didn't look at her. "You don't. Then why are people trying to kill me?" That made him turn. His voice was raw. "Because they know I care." The words landed like a sentence. She swallowed. "You told me you protect what's yours." His eyes darkened. "And now you're in danger because of it." Her chest ached. "So, what happens next?" Adrian hesitated. That alone terrified her. "Next," he said slowly, "you leave." The word hit harder than the gunshot. "No. You take your things. You disappear. I'll give you enough money to." She stepped forward. "You don't get to decide that. This isn't a discussion." She laughed bitterly. "You tracked my life. You watched me. You pulled me into this mess. And now you're sending me away like a problem you can solve with money." Adrian's control snapped. "I almost lost my son tonight. And I almost died protecting him," she shot back. Silence. The baby shifted between them, breathing softly. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "You don't scare me," she said. "What scares me is how easily you think love is something you can erase." His jaw clenched. "You think letting you stay is love," he said. "It's a death sentence." "Then why haven't you let me go already?" He had no answer. Because the truth was unbearable. Because in a world where fear ruled everything, she was the only thing that felt real. Outside the safe room, the mansion returned to quiet. But inside, everything had changed. She reached for the baby, brushing his cheek gently. "He needs stability," she said. "Not running. Not hiding." Adrian closed his eyes. "You're asking me to risk everything." She met his gaze. "I already did." A long beat passed. Then Adrian spoke the words that sealed her fate. "If you stay," he said, "there's no going back." She didn't hesitate. "I know." Adrian nodded once. Slow. Final. And somewhere in the darkness beyond the mansion walls, the enemies who failed that night began planning something worse. Because now they knew the truth. The Mafia boss had a weakness. And her name wasn't power. It was love. The betrayal didn't come with gunfire. It came with silence. Morning light crept through the tall windows of the mansion, pale and cold. The kind of light that made everything look honest, even lies. She woke to emptiness. The other side of the bed was untouched. No warmth. No imprint. Her heart sank. She rose slowly, pulling a robe around herself, listening. The mansion was too quiet. No footsteps. No voices. No baby crying. Fear tightened her chest. She hurried down the hall. The nursery door was open. The crib was empty. Her breath left her in a soundless gasp. "No, no, no." She ran. Bare feet slapped marble floors as panic took over. She checked the study, the kitchen, the hallway. Nothing. Then she saw it. The front doors, wide open. Cold air poured inside. Her legs gave out. She collapsed against the wall just as footsteps echoed behind her. Adrian. He stopped when he saw her on the floor. What happened? He asked sharply. She laughed, a broken, disbelieving sound. You're asking me? His eyes darkened instantly. What's wrong? The baby, she whispered. He's gone. The word gone sucked the oxygen from the room. Adrian moved like a storm. Guards flooded in. Phones came out. Orders were barked. The mansion erupted into controlled chaos. But Adrian didn't shout. That was worse. He stood perfectly still, eyes scanning every detail, jaw locked so tight a muscle twitched in his cheek. Lock the gates, he said calmly. Check cameras. Now. She watched him, the man who ruled fear, and saw something terrifying. He was barely holding himself together. Minutes passed. Then a guard swallowed hard. Sir, the cameras show someone leaving with the baby. Adrian's voice was deadly quiet. Who? The guard hesitated. She already knew. Her stomach dropped. It was Sophia, the head housekeeper, the woman who had helped her settle in, the woman who kissed the baby's forehead every night. No, she whispered. She wouldn't. Adrian turned to her slowly. You trusted her, he said. So did you, she shot back. The silence between them cracked. Play the footage, Adrian ordered. The screen flickered to life. There was Sophia, calm, composed, wrapping the baby carefully in a blanket. No struggle. No rush. Before leaving, she paused and looked directly at the camera. Then she smiled. The room felt like it tilted. She planned this, she whispered. Adrian's hands curled into fists. She was paid, he said. By someone who knows me very well. Who? She demanded. Adrian didn't answer. Because the name was poison. Because the enemy wasn't outside. It was family. Hours later, the call came. Adrian answered on the first ring. A familiar voice laughed softly through the speaker. You always were careless with love, Adrian. Her blood ran cold. Bring him back, Adrian said. Oh, I will, the voice replied. But first, I want her. Her heart stopped. Adrian's eyes snapped to her. No, he said immediately. She has nothing to do with this. Doesn't she? The voice mocked. She's the reason you're weak. The call ended. The room felt hollow. She stepped closer to Adrian, voice trembling. This is my fault. He turned on her sharply. Don't. I stayed, she said. I chose this. And I let you, he said, rage breaking through. I should have sent you away. She shook her head, tears burning. If I go now, he dies. The truth hung between them. Adrian looked at her like a man staring at his own execution. I won't trade you for him, he said. She didn't hesitate. I will. His breath hitched. I won't lose both of you, he said. You already are, she whispered. She stepped back. I'm not asking, she said softly. I'm deciding. Adrian grabbed her wrist. Look at me, he ordered. She did. And in his eyes, she saw it. Love. Pure. Terrifying. Ruinous. If you walk out that door, he said, voice breaking, I may never forgive myself. She smiled through tears. Then save him, she said. So it means something. She pulled free and walked toward the same door the baby had been taken through. Adrian stood frozen. The man who commanded armies. The man who killed without remorse. Unable to move. Because this time, the sacrifice wasn't his to make. And somewhere far away, a child cried. And a trap snapped shut. The location was deliberately cruel. An abandoned cathedral at the edge of the city. No guards. No weapons. No second chances. Rain fell in thin, icy sheets as Adrian's car rolled to a stop. The stained glass windows were shattered, saints reduced to broken faces watching silently. He stepped out alone. No gun. No backup. Just love and fear twisting in his chest. Inside, the air smelled of damp stone and old sins. She stood at the center aisle, hands bound, hair wet from rain. But she was standing tall. When she saw him, relief flashed across her face, followed instantly by pain. "You shouldn't have come," she whispered. He ignored the ropes, ignored the danger, and crossed the distance in 3 strides. "I told you not to," he said hoarsely. "And I told you," she replied softly, "I'd do it anyway." Before he could touch her, applause echoed. Slow, mocking. A man stepped from the shadows. Adrian's brother. Lucian. The man who had taught him how to shoot. Then taught him how to betray. "Well," Lucian said, smiling. "Look at you. Unarmed. In a church." Mother would cry. "Where is my son?" Adrian demanded. Lucian gestured casually. A guard wheeled forward a carrier. Inside, the baby slept. Alive. Adrian's knees almost gave out. "You see," Lucian said lightly, "I'm not a monster." She choked back a sob. Adrian stepped forward instinctively. Lucian raised a hand. "One more step," he warned, "and I drop him." Time stopped. Adrian froze. "Let her go," Adrian said. "Take me instead." Lucian laughed. "You always were dramatic." "I'm serious." Lucian studied him. Then his smile faded. "You would trade everything," Lucian said slowly, "for a woman who saw your private life and didn't run?" Adrian's voice cracked. "She's not everything. She's more." Lucian turned to her. "You hear that?" he asked mockingly. "You soften the devil." She met his eyes. "You're wrong." "Oh." Lucian leaned closer. "Then why is he shaking?" Adrian hadn't noticed, but his hands were trembling. Lucian sighed. "Here's the deal. You kneel and beg." The word hit harder than any bullet. "You kneel," Lucian continued, "and say you're nothing without me." Adrian stared at him. The Empire's most feared man. Men had died before hearing his voice. And now, he dropped to his knees. The sound echoed through the cathedral. Her breath caught violently. "Adrian, no." He didn't look at her. He looked at the baby. "I am nothing," he said, voice raw, "without my family." Lucian blinked. That wasn't what he expected. "I beg you," Adrian continued, tears finally falling. "Please." Silence. Then, Lucian snapped his fingers. The ropes around her wrists were cut. The baby carrier was pushed forward. "For now," Lucian said coldly. "Enjoy the illusion of peace." Adrian lunged forward, catching her as she stumbled, pulling the baby into his arms. For one breathless second, the world felt whole. Then Lucian spoke again. "You forgot one thing, brother." Adrian looked up. Lucian raised a gun. "You never win." A shot rang out. She screamed his name. And the screen cuts to black. The sound of the gunshot still echoed when Adrian hit the ground. Her scream tore through the cathedral. Adrian! Blood spread fast, too fast, staining the stone beneath him. Lucian lowered the gun, disappointed. I aimed to cripple, not kill, he muttered. Guess I'm rusty. She collapsed beside Adrian, hands shaking as she pressed against the wound. Stay with me, she begged. Please. You promised. Adrian's eyes fluttered. He smiled faintly. You always fix things, he whispered. Sirens wailed in the distance. Lucian's smile vanished. He backed away. This isn't over, he snarled, disappearing into the rain. She didn't care. All she saw was Adrian bleeding, and the baby crying in her arms. Hours later, the hospital corridor smelled like antiseptic and fear. Doctors rushed past her without answers. She sat on the floor, rocking the baby, whispering promises she wasn't sure she could keep. I'll protect you, she murmured. No matter what. A doctor finally approached. Her heart stopped. He's alive, the doctor said. But barely. Relief crashed into her so hard she sobbed. 3 days later, Adrian woke to quiet. No machines screaming. No guard shouting. Just sunlight. And her. Asleep in a chair beside him, the baby curled against her chest. For a long moment, he just watched. This was what he had begged for. She stirred when he moved. Her eyes widened. You're awake, she whispered, then laughed, then cried all at once. He reached for her hand. I thought I lost you, she said. You didn't, he replied softly. I lost the man I was. She blinked. What do you mean? I'm done, Adrian said. With all of it. She searched his face. You'd walk away? For him, he said, nodding to the baby. For you. Silence filled the room. Then she nodded. Then we leave, she said. Today. 6 months later. The city whispered his name like a ghost. They said the Mafia boss vanished. That the empire collapsed overnight. No bloodbath. No revenge spree. Just gone. But far away. A modest house. A repaired laptop on a kitchen table. A baby's laughter filling the air. She watched Adrian kneel on the floor, letting their son crawl over him, smiling without fear. You know, she said, you never did ask why I didn't run when I saw those photos. He looked up. Why didn't you? She smiled gently. Because I saw loneliness. Not evil. He stood, pulling her close. I would have destroyed the world for you, he said. She rested her forehead against his. You didn't, she replied. You chose to live. That night, Adrian stood outside, watching the stars. No guards. No enemies. No crown. Just peace. He had ruled through fear. He survived through love. And, for the first time, the baby slept without crying.